Filming for actors can come with painful and irreversible physical damage, and many great actors have suffered disabilities and even death while shooting a movie. And some old cast of the popular fan favorite The Wizard of Oz had a disappointing end because of their roles and activities on set. The Wizard of Oz is a funny, emotional, and very well put together movie, but the set may have been very toxic and dangerous because it ruined the actor who played the Tin Man, Buddy Ebsen. But it's insane because he wasn't the only one whose life was changed for the worse with that production, as it will break your heart to find out the other cast from the film whose life never remained the same again after featuring in the movie. For Buddy, who played one of the funny characters in the film by combining his dancing and singing skills despite being covered in metal, the behind the scenes was a ruthless experience for him. For his Tin Man's role in the 1939 version of The Wizard of Oz, Buddy had to wear a metal suit and be covered in pure aluminum powder. However, using such harsh substances as part of his costume caused Buddy severe lung damage, which later developed into lifelong respiratory problems. Initially, Buddy was meant to portray the Scarecrow. However, Ray Bolger, who eventually ended up playing the role, had a powerful agent, William Morris, who snatched the role right from under Buddy. So Buddy had no choice but to settle for the Tin Man, and the costume nearly caused his demise even before the issues with aluminum poisoning started. His daughter, Kiki Ebsen, said that they originally made Buddy's costume out of bulky stove pipe and the sharp metal pressed against the actor's delicate joints until they remade the materials with cardboard. Sadly enough, Buddy couldn't escape the aluminum dust. Kiki said they dusted his face and hands with aluminum powder, real aluminum dust. It was in the air, and because the lights were hot, his makeup melted several times daily, so he had to be reapplied with aluminum dust, and he inhaled it over time. It coated the inside of his lungs like paint. He could not get oxygen to his blood, but he didn't know this was happening. He knew he was cramping up on set and during shooting. Buddy started having difficulty breathing on set, but was afraid to speak out because the set was problematic and toxic, and he feared he might lose his job. However, things got worse 10 days into filming as he woke up but couldn't breathe, and he thought that would be his last day alive. Buddy had to be rushed to the hospital and was there for 2 weeks, but it was terrible because oxygen couldn't get into his blood at this hospital, which left him with fermented blood. It got worse for Buddy because he no longer had a job when he returned to the set. He had been fired and replaced with Jack Haley, and the studio directors didn't care much about Buddy and even called him a liar who only had an allergy. They treated the new actor differently by not applying the aluminum directly on his skin, but mixing it with a paste before painting it on him. However, Jack developed a treatable eye infection. Buddy ended up with a respiratory disease for the rest of his life, and his career went downhill just from being fired from The Wizard of Oz. A lot happened on the set of this classic movie because Ray, who played the Scarecrow, also ended up with a disability from his time on the film set. Ray ended up with deformed lines on his face, which were caused by the rubber mask he wore. However, the mask was made of latex, and it usually takes 1 hour to peel off the rubber makeup from Ray's face after shooting for the day. It was more like an adhesive tape on his face that had to be peeled off and reapplied daily. For the filming of The Wizard of Oz, Ray used over 100 rubber bags, which is also the amount of time it had to be peeled off from his face. He noticed a permanent waffle-like burlap pattern on his skin when he was peeling off the mask for the last time after they wrapped shooting in March of 1939. Eventually, the corners of his mouth and chin never recovered from the damage caused by the rubber bag. But it got worse because that wasn't the only thing Ray suffered from on the Wizard of Oz set. When Dorothy and the Outcasts were in a poppy field and it snowed, it's been widely reported that the production used asbestos, a known carcinogen, which is quite cancerous, but what they actually used is called gypsum. Ray passed away many years later as a result of cancer, which has made many people assume it was from the filming with asbestos. Although the snow wasn't made of asbestos, they used asbestos asbestos in Ray's costume as the Scarecrow so that he wouldn't burn whenever the Wicked Witch lit him on fire. However, no confirmed report has been made between Ray's cancerous disease and the asbestos because the actor was diagnosed with bladder cancer in 1986 and he passed away the following year at the age of 83. It appears every central character from The Wizard of Oz wasn't spared from the brutality of the makeup and emotional damage on the set, as the actress who played the Green Witch, Margaret Hamilton, also suffered a great deal due to the green makeup. Margaret experienced severe health issues due to the large amounts of copper toxins in her green makeup. Margaret couldn't eat on set at a point as she could only take liquid food with straws. Even when she had to eat, Margaret was careful not to inhale the makeup. The green paint was also challenging to remove, and the actress had to remain green for several months after filming The Wizard of Oz. But the green makeup was minor compared to another significant hazard that Margaret faced on the set, as she had to handle white phosphorus to stage her disappearance, which led to third-degree burns on her face and arms. So when you saw her disappear in the Munchkin Land scene, she got severely burned, but the torture continued later on. They had to use real fire because it was the period when they had no CGI. As soon as she suffered those severe burns, the copper on her skin started seeping into her body, causing further burns, and alcohol had to be poured on her open wound to clean the green makeup before any additional damage was done. To make matters worse, that role limited Margaret's ability to play other roles after the project, as she was continually typecast as a witch. Margaret's body double, Betty Danko, also went through irreparable damage after using the broom attached to a smoking pipe. Margaret was meant to perform this stunt, but declined due to her recent accident on the set. And while Betty was on her third rehearsal, the pipe exploded and blew her off the broomstick, causing her legs to be permanently scarred after spending 11 days at the hospital. The crazy thing was that the costume woman only cared about finding the hat after Betty got injured on set. Before you get to the most heartbreaking part of this story, don't forget to check out our Wicked playlist, which has deeper details about the film and more. With how toxic the set of The Wizard of Oz was to the adults, it was beyond terrifying for the child actress Judy Garland, who played the main character Dorothy in the film. In a land of witches and wizards, Dorothy, who only cared about returning home with her dog Toto, was an adorable character with whom many viewers fell in love. But despite the actress performing excellently in the film, she suffered some very toxic treatments behind the scenes. It was much harder for the teenage Judy to get through the making of the 1939 film than it was for Dorothy to navigate the Emerald City. As a teenager, Judy had to endure working long hours on the Wizard of Oz set, which was extremely painful, but none of this mattered to the production. Instead, they encouraged the use of stimulants and substances to keep the performers working, especially the 16-year-old Judy at the time, and whenever they were done and the cast got too tired to sleep or rest, they would make them take sleeping pills. By the time Judy was done filming The Wizard of Oz, she was already addicted to some harsh and illegal substances. She got introduced to these stimulants even before she got the chance to wear the ruby slippers in the show. Many of these pills given to Judy by the studio bosses were in demand for the young actress to remain thin and powerful enough to keep working despite the tight and insane pressure on set. As a young girl, Judy, who was born Frances Ethel Gum, had no guardian who had her interest in heart to watch out and protect her at such a vulnerable age, as her mother pushed her out to start performing. Judy began performing with her sisters as early as 2.5 years after their mother put them in the spotlight. Sadly enough, her mother was the first to give her pills for energy and sleep when she wasn't even 10 years old yet, so it looked normal to her when the studio started giving her those same substances as well. It got worse for Judy because she was also verbally attacked for her weight by the studio executives, and they even called her fat little pig with pigtails. Then, they followed this closely by placing her on a very restrictive and unbalanced diet where her food intake was monitored. The studio producers of Metro-Goldwyn-Mayer, where she was signed to at the time, gave her a list of things she could eat to reduce her appetite and maintain her weight: chicken soup, black coffee, cigarettes, and pills. It was also reported that the primary director of the film, Victor Fleming, slapped Judy while filming one scene to get her to stop giggling. Despite all this maltreatment, Judy was paid $500 compared to her male co-stars Ray and Jack, who got $3,000 each. Judy once told a biographer, Paul Donnelly, about the traumatic experience, saying, "They had us working days and nights on end. They'd give us pills to keep us on our feet long after we were exhausted. Then they'd take us to the studio hospital and knock us out with sleeping pills. Then, after 4 hours, they'd wake us up and give us the pep pills again so we could work 72 hours in a row. This early introduction to harmful substances ended up making Judy reliant on the pills, and she continued to battle with addiction until she lost her life to an accidental overdose in 1969 when she was only 47 years old. Aside from the major characters who encountered these terrible issues on the set of The Wizard of Oz, the minor cast members also experienced the same treatment. The actors who played the flying monkeys got injured when the piano wires they were suspended from broke during filming. Toto, the dog, wasn't spared either, as a crew member accidentally stepped on her and broke her foot. The little people cast to play Munchkins were paid just $50 a week, which is way below how much the dog Toto got paid, as the dog earned $125 per week. It was also reported that the actors who played the Munchkins were refugees escaping Germany, which could be why they were paid poorly without any regard for their labor. Although Bert Lahr, who portrayed the Cowardly Lion, didn't suffer any injury like his other co-stars. His costume, made out of real lion fur, was unbearably hot and caused him to sweat a lot under the set lights.